We've got a Dutch door with all kinds of issues. A new floor was put in, and you can see the gap there. It's because the floor is higher here than it is at the threshold. So the way we solved that, put in a new threshold, put a door bottom on the door, so that way it can open without hitting the floor here. Another issue is there's no gap here, but once the lock is installed, cannot shave this. So what we have to do is remove the door, shave it on this side, then remortise the hinges, so that moves the whole door over that way. So that'll increase the gap. We have to do the same thing on the top half of the door. Here we are looking for the outside, so once we put a new threshold on here, we're going to have to do something to take up all this space to hide it. So we can put in a piece of wood and paint it this color so it all looks good. The top half of the door is off. So now with the hinges removed, I need to remove about 1/8 inch of material from this side. So I'm just going to run my planer on here until the gap of this old hinge is gone. See, now it's even. Now I got to remortise this hinge and reset it. Alright, the hinges are back in. Now look at that. We've got the nickel-sized gap, which is exactly what we want. Now we're going to do the same thing with the bottom. Because the door was so tight, it was never even latching. And now that we've adjusted the lower door, this whole strike plate had to be lowered so that it'll latch. So now with the hinges in place, we shut the lower one, and look at that. We've got our nice 1/8 inch gap, nice and even, and this thing actually works. You don't have to slam it. Now that that's working, the top and bottom, they're sticking a little bit. They rub. So the last thing we'll do is maybe take just a little off of here so that those don't bind. But right now, I'm going to put in the threshold and then cut the bottom. Now the purpose of a threshold is that the door is centered directly over here. Okay? So that means you want your door between these lines. Well, since the edge of the door goes right to the edge of the stop, when the threshold is cut in place, we want this line to be right there at the stop. Threshold is cut. That fits right in there. So we got our line right at the stop, just what we want. Beautiful. So now we got to put something underneath here to support this. I think we'll take out this old threshold so we have something flat to build up. To support the threshold, I made this piece here. The front is oak. You can see this end is taller, and then it gets shorter as it goes down to this end. And I glued and screwed it to a shaped piece of 2x4. So when I set that in there, it's going to fit perfect. This had to be taller because the floor is not even. So now with that in place, I can screw that in, and then we'll have a nice stable surface to install that threshold. See how nice that is? And they're going to have a piece of solid oak here. We're going to caulk this and paint it so it'll be weatherproof, and we'll have a nice stable surface to screw the threshold into. Here's how I find the right height for the door. My threshold's in place, but I'm not going to screw it in yet. I got the door bottom cut to length, and I got the rubber piece in. The drip edge goes on the outside. So I put this in place. Now this idea of the door shoe is that the rubber rubs along the threshold so you have a nice seal. So with that in place, I just leave it there. And now I know where my door needs to be. So that means I want to put the bottom of my door bottom of my door should be right there. And on this side, I want it to be right there. Now, what I can do is remove the threshold, can shut the door. I don't even need to measure. Since I have my mark here, I know I'm just going to transfer that to the door, and that's where I'm going to cut the bottom. And on this side, I'm going to cut it right. On this side, I'm going to cut it right there. So I'll just transfer these marks and then cut the door. I just cut this off the bottom, and while I have the door off the hinges, I just planed this edge where it was hitting the top door. Just a little bit, just enough to get all that paint off and just a little bit of wood. I'm going to seal these cracks with this clear silicone caulk. Now with the threshold in place, I take the door shoe and just slide it on the bottom of the door. Now we'll close the door. See, there's no more gap. And that's where you want it. So now, see, since we've raised the threshold, the door is not going to hit the floor anymore. And then when it closes, we'll have a nice, snug seal. So with that in place, we'll put the screws in there, and the bottom is set. Okay, remortised the surface bolt catch. That goes, and now look at that. Look at that. You got a nice seal on the bottom, got a threshold, and we got a nice even gap along the side. So there it is, the Dutch door repair.